Okay, and now I welcome someone who needs no introduction, the leader of Alberta's NDP, Naheed Nenshi.
Well, just before I turn around, thank you all so much for being here. You know, when we realized what the Premier was going to do yesterday, I said to the team, let's just do a hastily brought together thing. Let's see if we can get a couple people out to stand with Canada. So this is supposed to be an impromptu mini rally. And look at all of you. With less than 24 hours notice, you were able to come out on the middle of a Friday to show your love for Canada. And folks, this really matters. So we've got a lot of press here. We've got a lot of journalists. They're going to ask me a lot of questions about politics, and there is a lot to talk about the politics of today. There is a lot to talk about how we got here and the extraordinarily political malfeasance of Premier Danielle Smith and the UCP, of their malpractice, of their toying with the future of our very country to save their own political skin. And we'll have a lot of time to talk about that. But that's not actually what I want to talk about today. We're standing here in Confederation Park, one of many Confederation parks dotted across this country. This park was dedicated because of the work of community members and volunteers who wanted to save this ravine, but mostly who wanted to give a gift to Canada for its centennial. And this park was built for that reason in 1967. In 2017, at Canada's sesquicentennial, its 150th anniversary, I had the great honor, I think I might have been wearing this jacket, of opening the time capsule that children had put in place 50 years earlier. And then we made a new time capsule, and we put it into the ground to be open on Canada's bicentennial, on its second 100th birthday in 2067. I will probably not be here for that. But Canada will be here for that. And Alberta will always, always, always be a part of Canada. And that's our job now, friends. And so, yes, there's horrible politics about this. The fact that we're in this situation right now is 100% the fact that the Premier doesn't care about being the Premier. She doesn't care about governing. She doesn't care about doing her job. She cares about returning favors to the people who got her into her job. And she doesn't care what happens to us. And she doesn't care what happens to the country. And do not be fooled by her deathbed conversion last night, in which she said, I'm fighting for Canada. Because let's be clear, she will not lift one finger to help the Remain side in this ridiculous referendum. She's put it on us. She's making us do the work. But you know what, Premier? We are proud to do that work. And we are proud to stand up for Canada today. And I want to say to all Albertans out there, as you're digesting what happened last night, the question is so weird. The Premier is putting herself into this, twisting herself into a pretzel after a pretzel. She said she had great empathy and sympathy for the separatists. She didn't say she had great empathy and sympathy for the 80% plus Albertans who don't want any part of this, by the way. But I know a lot of Albertans are waking up to the news today and saying, what? So for the third time in Canadian history, at a time in the world where we know where separatist movements have caused extraordinary harm, 10 years after Brexit, 21 years, if you can believe it, after the Quebec referendum 1995, we are now, for only the third time in Canadian history, having a referendum on whether we should tear Canada apart. And here's what we know. We know that referenda are unpredictable. We know that we never know what's going to happen. We know that Brexit, when Prime Minister David Cameron announced, it was polling about where Alberta Independence is polling now. So we got work to do. We're not sleepwalking into this campaign. But also, we know that referenda are inherently destabilizing. I was just in Montreal this week for some volunteer stuff that I do. And I was reminded while I was there, not just of the Habs, go Habs go, but I was reminded that that is a city that lost so much potential. In the late 1960s, when this park was inaugurated, Montreal was the capital of the world. It was the capital of art and film and commerce and business. And then separatism happened. And 60 years of economic decline in Quebec. Over 350 head offices leaving Quebec. Many of them ending up right here in Calgary. That's what we're in for if we don't stop this now. But the most important reason that we're worried about this referendum is it calls in question here around the country and around the world our patriotism, our commitment to this country. It sets neighbor against neighbor and friend against friend in a horrifically divisive process that will have no good outcome. And what the Premier announced yesterday in fulfilling her promise to the separatists makes it even worse. A referendum to have a referendum on potentially having a referendum. I call that a never-endum. And what that really means is that nothing will be put to rest in October because the Premier won't put it to rest. Because she won't say, I'm a proud Canadian. Those of you who are not proud Canadians, well, set up your own party and run in an election if you like. Oh, wait. They did that. Bev Taves, do you remember that? I feel like the separatists ran against you. And they ran against me. And I feel like you thumped them in Old Didsbury Three Hills. I won't embarrass them by telling them how many votes they got in my riding. But that said, this lack of leadership has brought us here. And I said I wasn't going to be very political today. I can't help it. I'm a politician. But what I really want to do is remind all of us that there are so many other things we'd rather be doing this summer. We would rather be enjoying the lake, barbecues in our backyard, having the best Canada Day ever. Those of us who are in politics would rather be talking to people about healthcare and education and the cost of living and how we're creating a better economy for future generations right here. This wasn't our battle. This battle was thrust upon us. But it is the battle of our lives. We will do everything we can. We will use every ounce of energy we have and every blood cells in every one of our bodies saying we are Canadian and we will always be Canadian. So to those Albertans watching who are asking yourself the most Canadian of all questions, how can I help? What can I do? There are many, many ways you can get involved. And in order to get connected to those, I encourage all of you to sign up at ForAlbertaForCanada.ca. That is the program we are running to save Canada and to encourage Albertans across the province to get more involved. You'll have opportunities on how you can get involved in your own neighborhoods, in your own communities, and how we can continue the fight. So that's ForAlbertaForCanada.ca, powered by Alberta's NDP. You don't have to be an NDP supporter or member to join, though we sure wish you would. But we are doing this on your behalf because all of us together are not sleepwalking into this referendum. We are here to save Canada. And with that, we are joined by extraordinary people in this battle. Albertans of every stripe, people whose families have been here for thousands of years, people who arrived here a week ago. Every single one of us proud Albertans, every single one of us proud Canadians. And I'm so happy today that on super short notice, I'm deeply, deeply grateful that we are joined today by one of the greatest Canadians. So Lizette said I needed no introduction. She absolutely needs no introduction, so I'm not going to give one. I'm just going to say, ladies and gentlemen, one of the greatest Canadians who's fought with, for, and alongside Canada her entire life, Olympic gold medalist Katrina LeMay-Doan.
Thank you, Nahed. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you. Any day and every day, I will stand for the Maple Leaf. And hearing the national anthem being sung, I mean, there is no greater sound. I have been in this province for 38 years, and I am a first-generation Canadian. My parents came to Saskatoon for 1 year. They never left. And I came here to Calgary 38 years ago for sport, and I have not left. And it is where I've chosen to have my family, raise my family, and to stay. And I have seen the power of the maple leaf in every aspect of it. I've seen it in this community, in this province, in this country, and around the world. And to be on the world stage representing the maple leaf, it's powerful and it's inspiring. And just recently I was in Milano Cortina, and it was right before the women's gold medal hockey game. And Canadians, anybody who was wearing the maple leaf, anybody who was wearing red and white, we hugged each other. We didn't know each other. We were from coast to coast to coast, and it united us. I have been at a Canada Games opening ceremony, and as we look around at this monument with all 13 provinces and territories flags, and I have been in an opening ceremony where these teams walk in representing their province or territory, so proud of their community. But what united us was the maple leaf. And the maple leaf must stay with all 13 provinces and territories. Canada is our home, and I will truly stand every day and talk about the power of this province and how Alberta must stay part of Canada. So I am for Alberta and for Canada, and thank you for giving me that opportunity to talk about my passion to represent the maple leaf. Thank you.
All right, to our friends from the press, we're happy to take questions now, and I will turn to my colleagues to manage that. But folks behind me, sometimes we call this situation a meat wall, which I hate. Today I'm calling it a wall of patriotism. So thank you all so very much for being here. Thank you all for the work you've already done to make our country stronger. Every one of you is what I call a sevadar, someone who gives service every single day. Many of you have been working for over a year with the Forever Canadian movement and with others to fight for Canada. We're deeply grateful for the work you do. And we're grateful you're here today.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. But friends, we cannot rest. We cannot rest. The fight starts now. And I said earlier that we wanted to just have a great Canada Day, but you know what? We're going to have the greatest Canada Day, because that is the day that we continue the fight for this country. So stay put, because you look amazing. Keep your energy up. I'm going to answer a whole bunch of questions. Then we're going to do some fun. We're going to take some photos. You got a chance to meet Katrina. You don't need to meet us, but it's going to be awesome. So stay put. Thank you very much. All right, 2 questions now.
All right, we are going to start with questions in person, and then we'll move to Zoom. Please reminder to say your name and outlet. 1 question, 1 follow-up.
Hey, Tim with CTV. The Premier is going to talk in about an hour, and one of the things she's going to say is 700,000 Albertans are asking for this.
I'll repeat the question.
You don't need to repeat the question. 700,000 Albertans are asking for this, according to Smith. So I want to put the separatists to one side. I want you to address the people who signed the Forever Canadian petition.
Yeah.
Do you think that was the intention here, that they did want to vote on separation?
The Premier is engaged in ultimate gaslighting on this question. The person who is driving this referendum, the person who needed to make this referendum happen, is the Premier. She pretends to be an innocent bystander, but last night the mask slipped. And we saw her plan all along. Her plan all along was that she was going to have a referendum on the separatist question. 8 months ago, a judge told her that was illegal and unconstitutional. She waved it off. And she said, we're going to do it anyway. Then another judge last week told her that that was illegal and unconstitutional. And so last night, she showed up on a pre-recorded video that she had recorded ages ago, showing her plan, except that she had to change the question to this terrible pretzel-like question that just creates more and more referenda going forward. And so I'm going to say to The folks on the separatist side who stood in the freezing cold trying to get people to sign their petition, as well as to the folks on the Forever Canadian side who stood in the blazing heat trying to get people to sign their petition. So number one, to the Forever Canadian folks, I know you. I saw you the whole summer across this whole province, and I know every single one of you was doing it to avoid a referendum. And for Danielle Smith to say, oh, you wanted a referendum, not only is it lies, not only is it gaslighting, it treats Albertans like they're idiots. And Albertans are not idiots. And that's going to be this Premier's downfall, that she thinks she's smarter than everyone else. But I also want to say to the folks who stood in the freezing cold getting separatist signatures, I would be so angry if I were you right now. You were being used as pawns by the Premier, by her inner circle, and by the separatist leaders. Let's not forget that they knowingly engaged in stealing your personal data, as well as the personal data of 3 million Albertans. Almost hidden in all the news this week was the fact that that data was found still existing on a U.S. website linked with pro-life and Republican and right-wing U.S. agencies and groups. And by the way, it's been up there for a year. So this was planned long in advance. And so to those folks, I say, look, I hear you. I understand you're frustrated. We're not going to agree on this. But I understand your frustrations. But you should be angry at the people who used you as pawns. Because no matter what you did, the fix was in. And I think that should be very frustrating for everyone.
So I understand this campaign is going to be part of it, but what is your plan here over the next 6 months to reach across the aisle? Yes, there's your voters behind you, but what is your plan to talk to other voters who are not separatists, but maybe more prone to voting Conservative?
Yeah, this is not a partisan thing. The legislation, as always with this government, is so badly written that there are certain things that only a political party can do. That's why For Alberta, For Canada is powered by the New Democrats. That said, we welcome everyone to join this movement. This movement is just about giving you the tools to talk to your neighbors and help get out the vote for Canada in the fall. You don't have to be a New Democrat. You don't have to be a member to sign up for ForAlbertaForCanada.ca, and we encourage everyone to go ahead and do that. And I also know there are many, many other people who are doing their own thing. So Mr. Lukaszuk, who I believe is a great Canadian patriot, and the work he's done is incredible, will continue to do his work. I've seen some centrist, more centrist, if there is such a thing as a centrist conservatives, launch something today. Of course, Jason Kenney has been very eloquent on this issue, and I'm trying not to say the arsonist can't call the fire department, but look, we welcome everybody, okay? Every single person needs to be part of this. I'm not doing this for my ego. I'm not doing this because mine should be the face of Canada. We have way better faces for Canada than this face. But ultimately, we need to get together with everyone. And I will tell you that For Alberta for Canada, you referred to my voters behind me. I suspect not all of them are. And what we found in For Alberta for Canada is we signed out about 10,000 Albertans already. And of those 10,000, roughly half of them have never worked on a political campaign before. A few weeks ago, we had our first day of action to launch off our spring and summer of door knocking. And of course, in typical Calgary and Edmonton style, it was a blizzard across the whole province. The weather was, how many were there? Yeah. I don't blame you for not being there. It was unbelievably cold. But still, 800 people across the province signed up, 400 of whom had never gone door knocking before. So we're already building that movement, and it has to be a movement of all proud Canadians. For once, we have to set politics aside, although there's a lot of politics in here. We're here because of politics. But we have to set politics aside and take on the fight of our lives to save Canada.
All right, next question. Name and outlet.
Thank you. Arzuma Compaoré with Radio Canada. And also, I wanted to ask if you could also answer in French, if that's possible. First question is, you keep saying that is a separatist, but yesterday she repeated again and again that she would vote for Alberta to stay within Canada. Why do you think?
She understands that if she comes out as a full-throated separatist, she loses the election. But if she comes out as a full-throated Canadian, she loses her job as leader of the UCP. So let's be extremely clear. The separatists got her the job as leader. They installed her as the premier. David Parker admits that every day. And that's why they've had such entitlement through this whole thing. We always knew that she owed them something. We never knew precisely what the deal was or what she owed them. And now we know what she owed them was a referendum this fall. If she doesn't want Alberta to leave, then she would have said, well, look, the courts gave her an escape route. She would have said, well, the courts are waiting on this, and I'm waiting until the courts tell me what I can do to give you a clear question. But if she did that, the separatists would have rioted and taken over her party even more than they already have. So she's indebted to them. So whether or not she personally is a separatist, and I've known her for 30 years, and honestly, I don't know. I've never heard her speak patriotically about Canada, ever. Even last night, she really didn't. She sort of said, I love Canada, and then went on for 10 minutes about all the things she hates about Canada. And so who knows where she feels, but that's not the point. You know, if you are doing this for the separatists, if you're giving them the microphone, the money, the power, everything, then you're a separatist. There's no two ways around it. And so that's what she's got to wake up and look in the mirror and understand, that everything we've got is because of her. The other thing that I'll mention on this is that she talked about how separatism is a growing force and it was all caused by Trudeau. Last I checked, he's not the prime minister anymore. But she had to go back to her old playbook because she didn't have anything else. She even blamed Jagmeet Singh. What Jagmeet Singh ever do? Poor guy never got close to power. But that's her playbook, that's her script. But what we actually know is that the support for separatism hasn't grown at all. Despite this huge microphone, despite all the social media, despite all the foreign influence, all the money, despite the data breach, the support for separatism hasn't grown at all. In fact, it's shrunk since the Wexit days. And if we had stronger leadership at the provincial level, if we had a premier that was interested in getting Alberta better, then we wouldn't have this problem. Donc en français. Danielle Smith, ça ne fait rien si elle est separatiste ou non. Parce que ce qu'elle fait is elle prend des fauteuils aux séparatistes. Et peut-être elle dit, oh non, je suis Canadien. Mais moi, je juge par les actions, pas par les mots. Et les actions sont que Danielle Smith est vraiment séparatiste. Elle donne de nourriture à séparatistes. On donne de puissance aux séparatistes. Et ça, c'est ce qu'elle fait. Ça, c'est ce qu'elle est.
All right. So, thank you. So, do you think now that the way the referendum question itself is formulated is causing like all this confusion? And can you tell us more about it?
Well, so what we have is a referendum to have a referendum. It's a multiple choice referendum. Do you want Alberta to remain a province of Canada, or do you want the government of Alberta to start the lengthy negotiations to have another referendum to stay out of Canada? And in fact, I would argue that many separatists would say, no, I want Alberta to stay, but I want Alberta to negotiate with Ottawa. So how do you answer the question? By the way, the answer is you say, I want Alberta to stay. Option A. But that said, it's ridiculous. It's pandering. This referendum will cost Albertan taxpayers anywhere between $50 and $100 million in cash, and unlimited amount. And I'd rather have that in hospitals and schools myself. But in addition to that, it will cause untold economic strife, and it will cause untold emotional strife for a question that will have zero results. The other 9 questions, by the way, the anti-immigrant questions, the ridiculous unconstitutional questions, are also meaningless. Literally not one thing will change if you vote yes or no on any of those questions. The separatism one is different, because if we don't have a resounding, massive vote against separatism, that means this will just continue. The way that Danielle has written this, it's going to continue anyway. But at least let's send her a message by, number 1, giving her the thumping defeat in this referendum that she deserves, and number 2, giving her the thumping defeat in the next election that she deserves.
All right, I'm so sorry, we have quite a few questions on the line, so we'll have to move.
Oh, en français. La question de référendum est ridicule. C'est absolument ridicule. Des choix multiples. Et ça ne fait que continuer le travail. Et ça, c'est vraiment parce que Danielle Smith a promis les séparatistes qu'en avoir une question cet automne. C'est ridicule, c'est pas leadership.
All right, we have about 7 minutes left. We're going to try to get through as many questions as possible. We have quite a few. So the next question goes to Janet French, CBC. Janet, your line should be open.
Hi there.
Hi, Janet.
It's not too loud behind me. So we hear a lot from you and the rest of the opposition about the apparent shortcomings of this government and how you don't think that they're working in Albertans' interests. But the latest polling numbers suggest that support for the Alberta NDP has actually slipped since the 2023 election. So why are you not able to capitalize on the UCP's apparent failings?
Do you have a new one for me, Janet? A new poll, that is? Because the one last week said we would win a majority election. That was Main Street.
Oh, don't talk about that.
Do you have a follow-up?
So the point being, as I always say to you, Janet, polls matter on election day. And the polls right now in this media environment don't make any sense. Pollsters' predictive value has gone way down, but I don't care. What I know is that the people behind me, the people directly behind me, my colleagues, and the people behind them knock on doors every day. And we know that the anger with this government is extraordinary. And so what we need to do in our job is to convince Albertans that they don't have to stand for this, that they deserve a better government, and that we will be that better government. And we'll continue to do that every day while we fight for Canada and while we fight for a better government for Albertans.
Do you have a follow-up, Janet?
Yes. How do you think that this upcoming campaign for the next 5 months is going to affect support for the UCP and support for the NDP?
Well, at the end of the day, it's going to crater support for the UCP with Danielle Smith as the leader. I mean, that's the critical thing, right? Which is, this isn't about politics. This is about saving Canada. That's real and true. And I'd much rather be talking politics. I'd much rather be on the barbecue circuit telling people about how we'd be a better government. But that said, I think all Conservatives now understand that Danielle Smith is not one of them. There's nothing conservative about this government. They're not fiscally conservative. They're not institutional conservatives. They're not really interested in social conservatism except what will score them political points. They're unbelievably corrupt. They're unbelievably incompetent at the work that they do. I've never seen a government like this before. But now that the mask has slipped, now that former UCP supporters see that Danielle Smith was just in it for the separatists who got her elected the whole time, they're going to be looking for an alternative. And does that mean they're going to get rid of Danielle as the leader of the UCP, as they gotten rid of every one of their last, can't even count how many premiers. Remember, the last two premiers to actually finish a term were Ralph Klein and Rachel Notley. So given that, who knows? I don't see Danielle Smith's political best before date getting any further away. I think she's really worried about her job right now. And ultimately, when that election is called, we're ready to fight it. And by the way, if Danielle believes in the polls, call the election now. Cancel these referenda. We'll take you up today. We'll take you up any day, and you will get the thumping defeat that you deserve.
All right, we've got a couple more minutes. Next question goes to Josh Hall, Red Deer News Now. Josh, your line should be open.
Hi there, Josh with RD News Now and the Everything Red Deer podcast. Nuthead, I'm hoping you can speak directly to the electorate for this answer. We've seen in federal, provincial, and municipal elections for many years low voter turnout.
Yeah.
So let's say this referendum goes ahead, and by all indications it will, though some are calling for the UCP to turn back, obviously. And as you do say, your belief, and I'm certainly not going to disagree with it, is that 80% of Albertans, quote, don't want any part of this. You said that just a few minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that is factual. Doesn't matter whatsoever if those people don't head out to the ballot box on October 19th. So can you speak to how voter turnout in this referendum is perhaps more important than any other referendum or election we've had in the past?
Josh, that is the most critical and most insightful question you could have asked. This really matters because so many people, even last night, I was getting notes from friends who were political-ish but not that political, who were saying, I thought this was a nothing burger. I thought this was never going to happen. And of course it's going to lose, right? But the thing is that we spent a lot of time over the last year when we saw this coming, talking to people who lived through Brexit, who lived through the Scottish independence referendum, who lived through 1995 and 1980 in Quebec. Hell, I talked to myself about the Olympics plebiscites here in Calgary. And the message was universal. You can't take this for granted. We cannot sleepwalk into this. We got to vote, and we got to vote in big, big, big numbers. Now, I'll let you in on a little political insight, which I always get in trouble when I do at the podium, Josh, but all these people are here. We'll give them a little bonus. Which is, if this was only the anti-immigrant referenda, I might say just don't go or spoil your ballot and give Danielle Smith an incredibly low voter turnout to show she has no mandate. We can't do that with separatism. You know, there are many, many, many people across Britain who woke up the day after Brexit 10 years ago and said, oh crap, I should have voted. Oh crap, I should have got my friends to vote. Oh crap, I should have brought my mother and my teenage kids to the voting booth. We can't let that happen. So if you want to save Canada, you can door knock with us. You can put a sign on your lawn. You can do all those things. But the single most important thing you can do is go to the ballot box and vote to save Canada.
You're here.
Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
You have
sorry,
a
they're just
follow-up.
chanting, Josh. Give us a second.
Just having a little bit of fun. All right, go ahead.
All right, go ahead.
Okay.
Katrina, he's going to ask you a question.
Katrina, people have strong opinions about, I guess you could say, celebrities wading into political issues, but we have had some musicians as of late doing so, not necessarily too many athletes. Would you challenge other Canadian athletes, particularly ones of your stature, to do the same as what you're doing today? And why do athletes and or celebrities have a role to play in this?
Every Canadian has a role to play in this. And I guess I would take your word challenge. I don't need to challenge any athlete who has represented the Maple Leaf, whether they're at the Olympics, the Paralympics, the World Championships. I have been in South Korea as honorary coach for the Special Olympics World Games. Any person who has worn the Maple Leaf doesn't need a challenge because they stand alongside Canada. And so everybody should stand up. Every person who calls this province home and who calls this country home needs to stand up. So regardless of what industry, regardless of the level of quote unquote celebrity, we are Canadians and that's what unifies us.
So good.
All right, we have time for one more question and one follow-up, of course, and we'll go to Sean Amato, City News. Sean, your line should be open.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Sean.
Okay, I'll just ask one and maybe we can let somebody else in. But my question for you is, are you concerned that we actually have no idea how many people wanted this? Because to hear Mr. Lukazik tell it, his 400,000, this wasn't their first choice. The separatists say they have 300,000 signatures, but those have never been verified. So we don't actually know how many people wanted this. Your thoughts on that, please?
This is a critical point. The Premier is trying to gaslight us by saying 700,000 people wanted this. In reality, 400,000 people signed a petition to say, don't do this. And listen, I saw those people all summer. I saw them across Alberta, and it was very clear what they wanted. Mr. Lukazik, I believe, has been very clear on what he wanted. I found an interview with him from last July in which he said we're doing this to avoid a referendum. So anyone who says he changed his tune, I don't think is correct. And on the separatist side, we now know that they had access to Albertans' data for over a year. All the data they needed to forge these signatures. So meanwhile, they had these poor volunteers out there looking at ID in the freezing cold, signing off the petition sheets, where it's very possible that there were people in the back rooms just in a mill filling out names, and not one of those signatures has been verified, not one. So we have no idea who wanted this, but I'll tell you who did want this. The UCP Constituency Association president, who's leading the separatist movement, wanted this. The guy who got the premier elected, whose wedding she attended, David Parker, wanted this. Jeffrey Rath wanted this. And most important, the premier and her chief of staff, Rob Anderson, wanted this.
All right, since Sean has gracefully given up his follow-up, we will go to Catherine for the final question.
Do you have lots of others, Tommy? I can do one or two more if you do.
No, we're
All
okay.
right.
We're okay. All right, Catherine. Alberta, Catherine, your line is open.
Oh, thank you very much. So what would you say to those Albertans who say, I don't actually want to leave, but I think there should be a question, or this isn't the actual separation referendum, so maybe by voting on this, I can send Ottawa a message. What's your message to those Albertans?
Don't do that, man. You've been manipulated, you've been gaslighted, and you've been lied to. The way to send Ottawa a message is to build a great Alberta and to show them how to build a great Alberta, to get the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion built, which the New Democrats did, to ensure that you're cutting child poverty in half, which the New Democrats did, to ensure that we've got great public services here in Alberta, which the New Democrats did. But you're being used. You're being used by the Conservatives because they're taking you for granted. They're saying we can get away with destroying public health care and education, not addressing the cost of living, not building good jobs for the future by getting you mad at Ottawa, by blaming Ottawa. Blame Danielle Smith. So you want to send a message, the best message to send is to send a message to Danielle Smith saying we need people to invest here, we need business stability, we need confidence, we need pride in Alberta and in Canada. So if you're a message voter that Danielle Smith is counting on, the message is to Danielle Smith. She says she's going to vote to stay, so you vote to stay too.
All right, that's our time. Thank you so much, folks.
Thank you, everyone.